You keep telling yourself it's just bad luck with relationships. You keep believing if you just work harder on your boundaries, choose more carefully next time, heal a little more, then finally you'll attract someone capable of meeting you. But there's a reason the same pattern keeps finding you, and it has nothing to do with your choices. It has everything to do with a wound installed so early you mistake it for your personality. The people who drain you, the partners who cannot see you, the relationships where you give everything and receive crumbs dressed up as love, they aren't accidents. They're following a signal you've been broadcasting since childhood, a frequency set by the first woman who was supposed to love you unconditionally, but taught you that love means the erasure of your needs. Before you could speak, before you had language for what was happening, your nervous system was learning. It was learning what to expect from love. It was learning how much pain is normal, how much neglect is acceptable, how much of yourself you must abandon to remain safe. Your mother, whether through her absence or her engulfment, whether through her coldness or her need, programmed you with a tolerance for emotional starvation that others simply do not possess. This isn't a metaphor. This is neurobiology. Your autonomic nervous system developed in an environment where love was conditional, where attention was unpredictable, where your authentic self was either invisible or too much. And so you learned to shapeshift. You learned to scan her mood before entering a room. You learned to manage her emotions before you could manage your own. You learned that your purpose was not to exist, but to serve as a regulator for her unprocessed pain. Jung understood something that most psychology still refuses to acknowledge. The mother complex isn't just an influence. It's an organizing principle, a gravitational field that bends every relationship that comes after toward its original pattern. You didn't just learn behaviors from your mother. You internalized an entire relational template, a blueprint for what connection looks like, what you're worth within it, and what you must sacrifice to maintain it. This blueprint runs so deep it feels like fate. It feels like this is just who you are. Someone who loves people who cannot love them back. Someone who tries harder when they should walk away. Someone whose empathy is mistaken for weakness by those who would exploit it. But here's what you need to understand. The wound didn't make you weak. The wound made you sensitive to a very specific type of predator. Narcissists, emotional vampires, unavailable partners, they don't choose randomly. They're scanning for something. And what they're scanning for is you. They're looking for someone whose childhood taught them that love requires the abandonment of self. They're looking for someone who learned early that their needs are too much, their feelings are inconvenient, their authentic desires are selfish. They're looking for someone who will accept breadcrumbs and call it a feast because that's what you were trained to do at your mother's table. You developed what I call the adaptive persona, the false self you constructed to survive her emotional weather. If she was critical, you became perfect, striving endlessly to be beyond reproach. If she was narcissistic, you became her mirror, reflecting back the admiration she craved while your own reflection disappeared. If she was absent, you became invisible, learning to need nothing, ask for nothing, exist as a ghost in your own life. If she was engulfing, you became an extension of her. Your boundaries so porous you couldn't tell where she ended and you began. This persona wasn't a choice. It was survival. But what saved you then is destroying you now, because you're still performing. You're still contorting yourself to fit the shape of someone else's need. You're still monitoring the emotional temperature of every room you enter. Still managing feelings that aren't yours. Still believing that if you just love hard enough, give enough, understand enough, then finally you'll earn the love that should have been yours by birthright. And the cruelest part, the part that will hurt to hear, is that you're not actually choosing these partners. You're choosing your mother over and over again, trying to heal the original wound through proxy, trying to make someone finally see you who is constitutionally incapable of seeing anyone but themselves. This is what Jung called the repetition compulsion, and it's not a character flaw. It's the psyche's desperate attempt to master an early trauma by recreating it. Your unconscious believes that if you can just get this unavailable person to love you, if you can just make this narcissist see your worth, then retroactively the original wound will heal. Then it will mean you were always lovable, always worthy, always enough. But the equation is rigged. You're trying to get from them what your mother couldn't give, and they're as empty as she was, just wearing a different face. The cost of this pattern isn't just failed relationships. The cost is you. The cost is the chronic depletion you've learned to call compassion, the way you give until you're hollow and call it love. The cost is the rage you've turned inward, because you were never allowed to direct it where it belonged. Manifesting now is depression that flattens you, anxiety that won't let you rest, physical symptoms your doctors can't explain because they're not looking at the right body. They're looking at flesh when the wound is in your soul. The cost is the fragmentation that happens when you betray your own reality over and over, when you minimize what was done to you, excuse what should be inexcusable, because to see the truth about her would shatter the illusion you've been protecting since childhood. You were taught that honoring your mother means silence. It means swallowing the truth. It means pretending the wound doesn't exist, or worse, pretending it was love. But this false honoring has kept you imprisoned in a pattern that will consume your entire life if you don't face what you've been running from. The truth you're avoiding isn't that your mother was a monster. The truth is simpler and somehow harder. She was human, limited, wounded herself, and she could not give you what she did not possess. She failed you in specific ways that shaped everything that came after. And until you can see that clearly, without the gauze of obligation or the fog of magical thinking, you will keep offering yourself to people who exploit the exact vulnerabilities she installed. You were trained to carry what was never yours to hold. The specific mechanism is this: when your mother could not contain her own anxiety, her own rage, her own despair, her own unfulfilled longing, you became the vessel. Jung called this projective identification, but the language doesn't capture the violence of it. A child's psyche is permeable, undefended, designed to absorb the emotional atmosphere like a sponge takes water. You didn't just witness her unprocessed shadow. You ingested it. It became part of your internal architecture. The rage she couldn't express became your chronic tension. The grief she couldn't feel became your inexplicable sadness. The needs she couldn't acknowledge became your compulsive caretaking. You are walking around with her disowned self living inside you, and you've been calling it your personality. This is the shadow work no one prepared you for. Everyone wants to talk about integrating your darkness, owning your anger, reclaiming your power. But first you have to separate what's actually yours from what you absorbed from her. Most of what you think is your shadow is hers. The self-criticism that never stops, that's her voice installed as your inner dialogue. The feeling that you're too much and not enough simultaneously, that's her projected ambivalence about her own existence. The terror of being seen, that's her shame you inherited before you could speak. You've been doing shadow work on the wrong shadow. You've been trying to integrate her unprocessed material, and it's been making you sick. The mother complex operates like a possession. Jung was precise about this. It's not a metaphor. There's a part of you that isn't you, that acts with autonomous power, that makes decisions against your conscious will. Why do you say yes when you mean no? The mother complex. Why do you betray your own needs to manage someone else's emotions? The mother complex. Why does your body collapse into freeze response when someone needs something from you? Because your nervous system was wired in her emotional weather, and it still responds to her patterns even when she's not in the room. Every narcissist you've attracted, every emotionally unavailable partner you've chosen, every dynamic where you give until you're empty, these aren't accidents. They're the mother complex seeking resolution through repetition. Your unconscious is trying to master the original trauma by recreating it. It keeps putting you in the same play with different actors, hoping this time you'll get a different ending. But you won't. Not until you face the central truth. She is not going to change. She is not going to suddenly see you. She is not going to have the realization that makes everything make sense. The mother you needed, she doesn't exist. She never did. And the energy you've spent, trying to earn her love, trying to be good enough, trying to make her understand. That energy is the life force you need to become yourself. Every moment you spend hoping she'll transform is a moment you're not available for your own transformation. This is the grief that changes everything, not the anger, though that will come, not the blame, though you'll move through that too. The grief, the bone-deep sorrow of accepting that the person who was supposed to be your first home was a house you could never rest in. Stop watching. Go to the comments and write, "I see my shadow." Do it now. The work begins with naming what actually happened, not the sanitized version you tell at dinner parties, not the explanation that makes her human and you understanding. The truth. She was emotionally absent when you needed presence. She made you responsible for her feelings. She punished you for having needs. She used you as a confidant, a therapist, a partner substitute. She envied you. She competed with you. She could not tolerate your separateness. She required your smallness to feel big. Write it down. Say it out loud. Let your body hear what your mind has been protecting her from. This isn't about blame. This is about accuracy. You cannot heal what you cannot name. Jung's active imagination technique becomes essential here. You're going to dialogue with the mother imago, the internal representation of mother that lives in your psyche. This is different from talking to your actual mother. Your actual mother will defend, deny, gaslight, collapse. The imago can hold truth. In a quiet space, you speak to her directly. You say the things you were never allowed to say. You ask the questions you were punished for asking. Why did you need me to be so good? Why couldn't you let me be angry? Why did my happiness threaten you? And then, this is crucial, you let her answer from the deep unconscious, not what you wish she'd say, what she actually would say if all defenses dropped. Often what emerges is devastating in its honesty. I needed you to make me feel worthwhile. I couldn't handle my own emptiness. I was terrified of losing control. Your aliveness reminded me of everything I'd given up. This is where the projection withdraws. You stop seeing mother in every authority figure, every romantic partner, every friend who disappoints you. You stop assigning her the power to validate or destroy you through proxy. The withdrawal of projection is a death, the death of hope, the death of the fantasy that one day she'll become who you needed, the death of the child who kept trying to earn love through perfect behavior. This death is necessary. It's the only death that leads to your resurrection. Because on the other side of this grief is rage, and the rage is holy. It's the anger you weren't allowed to feel because her fragility was always more important than your reality. It's the no that's been trapped in your throat for decades. It's the boundary that would have gotten you abandoned. Let it come, not to destroy, but to clarify. Rage tells you where you were violated. It marks the territory of your selfhood. It says this far and no further. But rage without integration becomes poison. This is where most people get stuck. They find their anger and they either suppress it again or they become it. Neither is individuation. Jung's method requires that you own the shadow without being possessed by it. You acknowledge, yes, I have rage. Yes, I have the capacity for cruelty. Yes, there's a part of me that wants revenge. And you hold it consciously. You don't act it out on innocent people. You don't turn it inward into depression. You contain it, feel it, let it inform your boundaries without letting it drive your behavior. This is the difference between integration and inflation. Integration says, I contain multitudes. Inflation says, I am only this one thing. The reparenting begins here. You become to yourself what she could not be, consistent, present, able to hold your pain without needing you to make it better, able to celebrate your joy without needing to diminish it, able to let you be separate without punishing you with withdrawal. This isn't visualization. This is daily practice. When the old pattern activates, when you feel the pull to abandon yourself for someone else's comfort, you pause, you place your hand on your heart, you say, I'm here, I'm not leaving you. You choose yourself, not once, 1,000 times, 10,000 times, until the new neural pathway becomes stronger than the old one. Your nervous system will resist. It's been programmed to find safety in self-abandonment. Choosing yourself will feel dangerous, selfish, wrong. That feeling is the mother complex trying to maintain control. It will tell you that boundaries are cruel, that your needs are too much, that if you stop performing, you'll be alone. These are lies, but they're lies your body believes. Somatic work becomes essential. You have to teach your nervous system that it's safe to take up space, safe to say no, safe to be seen in your fullness. This happens through the body, not the mind, through breath work, through movement, through slowly expanding your window of tolerance for your own aliveness. And then something shifts. The poison becomes medicine. The wound that made you permeable to others' pain also gave you the capacity for profound empathy. The hypervigilance that exhausted you also gave you the ability to read energy, to sense what's unspoken, to know truth beneath performance. The early training in emotional labor gave you skills in holding space, in witnessing, in midwifing others' transformation. But now you wield these gifts consciously. You choose when to give. You choose who deserves access. You choose yourself first. And from that fullness, you offer what's true rather than what's needed to keep you safe.